There is a subtle yet profound distinction that often goes unnoticed. The difference between the Quran and the physical book that rests in our hands. One is paper and ink, bound and printed, occupying space on a shelf. The other is divine light, timeless and living, meant to travel beyond the eyes and settle within the depths of the heart. When this distinction is overlooked, the Quran risks being reduced to an object rather than experienced as a presence. The physical book is honored, kissed, placed on high shelves, and treated with respect, and rightly so. But reverence alone does not guarantee transformation. Many read its pages fluently, their tongues precise, their voices beautiful, yet the light of the Quran does not always pass beyond the throat. This is not a failure of recitation, but a reminder that recitation is only a doorway, not the destination. The Quran was never meant to be confined to sound waves or memorized patterns. It was revealed to awaken something within the human soul. Allah reminds us of this deeper reality when He says, "This is a book which we have revealed to you, full of blessing, so that they may reflect upon its verses, and that those of understanding would be reminded." Surah Sad 38:29. Reflection is the key word here. The purpose is not merely to read, but to pause, to absorb, to allow the verses to question us before we question them. Without reflection, the words remain external, present, but unopened. The Quran describes itself as light, not as pages. Light illuminates what was previously unseen. It reveals, guides, and transforms. But light only benefits those who open themselves to it. A closed heart, like a sealed room, remains dark even when the sun is shining outside. In the same way, one may carry the Quran, memorize it, even teach it, yet still be untouched by its guidance if the heart is distracted, hardened, or inattentive. True engagement with the Quran requires presence. It asks for humility, for stillness, for an inner readiness to be corrected. The Quran does not simply inform, it confronts. It challenges assumptions, reshapes priorities, and gently but firmly redirects the soul back toward its Creator. This is why the early believers were transformed not by the volume of verses they memorized, but by how deeply those verses settled within them. A single ayah could change the course of a life when it was allowed to descend from the tongue into the heart. Memorization is noble, recitation is rewarded, but internalization is transformative. When the Quran is truly received, it begins to speak even in moments of silence. Its guidance surfaces in decisions, its warnings echo before mistakes, and its mercy softens the heart during hardship. At that point, the Quran is no longer something we read, it becomes something we live with. The physical book may remain on a shelf, but the Quran itself is meant to walk beside us, shaping our inner world. It is alive, not static, active, not dormant. And the greatest measure of our relationship with it is not how often our eyes scan its pages, but how deeply its meanings have reshaped who we are. There is a quiet misunderstanding that often settles into religious practice. The belief that holding the Quran is the same as holding its guidance. Yet the two are not identical. The physical book is a vessel, dignified and honored, but the Quran itself is something far more expansive. It is not bound by pages or contained by ink. It is meaning breathed into language, guidance descending into human hearts, light meant to be received rather than merely observed. Paper can be touched, weighed, and stored. Divine light cannot. The Quran was revealed to illuminate the inner world, to awaken perception, to realign the soul with its origin. When Allah speaks, He does not aim only for correct pronunciation or flawless memorization. He aims for transformation. This is why reading alone, though virtuous, is not the final goal. One can move their eyes across every verse and still miss the invitation hidden within them. The call to change, to soften, to return. The Quran itself points to this reality when it asks, "Do they not reflect upon the Quran? Or are there locks upon their hearts? Surah Muhammad 47:24. The verse does not question literacy or access. It questions openness. A locked heart cannot receive light, no matter how many times the words pass over it. Reflection is the act of unlocking, of allowing the meaning to descend from intellect into consciousness. Memorization preserves the Qur'an, but internalization allows it to preserve us. The early generations understood this deeply. They would not rush through verses, nor measure their closeness to Allah by quantity alone. They would pause at commands, asking how to obey them. They would stop at warnings, examining their own lives. The Quran was not something they completed, it was something they entered. Allah's message is alive. It responds to the reader according to the state of their heart. Read in arrogance, it confronts. Read in humility, it heals. Read in heedlessness, it may remain distant. Read with sincerity, it unveils layers of meaning that feel personally addressed. This is why the same verse can feel ordinary one day and overwhelming the next. The Quran has not changed, the heart has. True learning occurs when the heart becomes a place of reception, when verses are allowed to question habits, to challenge attachments, to rearrange priorities. At that point, the Quran is no longer external guidance. It becomes an internal compass. It begins to speak in moments of decision, to whisper restraint during temptation, to offer comfort during grief. This is the light Allah promises. Not a light that decorates shelves, but one that guides footsteps. The physical book will always remain essential, honored, and sacred. But its greatest purpose is fulfilled only when what it carries takes root within us, when meaning replaces mere sound, when guidance outlives recitation, when the Quran moves from being something we read to something that reads us, revealing who we are and who we are meant to become. The Quran does not present itself as a closed text with fixed edges. It arrives instead like an endless sea, deep, expansive, and without a visible shore. One may approach it countless times from countless angles and still never exhaust what it contains. Each reading feels familiar, yet never identical. Each return unveils something new, not because the words have changed, but because the reader has. This is the nature of divine speech. It meets every heart at its own depth. A verse that once felt simple can later feel profound. A passage once overlooked can suddenly feel as though it was revealed for that very moment. The Quran does not yield all its meanings at once. It gives according to readiness. Just as not every vessel can carry the same amount of water from the ocean, not every heart receives the same measure of meaning. Even among the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, those who heard the Quran directly from revelation, understanding was not uniform. Some grasped outward rulings, others perceived subtle wisdoms, and a few were granted deep spiritual insight. This difference was never treated as contradiction. It was understood as mercy. Allah allowed the same verses to nourish different hearts in different ways, each according to their sincerity, struggle, and closeness to Him. Allah alludes to this vastness when He says, "Say, if the sea were ink for the words of my Lord, the sea would be exhausted before the words of my Lord were exhausted, even if we brought another like it as a supplement." Surah Al-Kahf, verse 127, 18:109. This is not poetic exaggeration. It is a declaration of infinity. The meanings of the Quran are not limited by language, time, or human comprehension. What we understand is never the whole, only a portion granted by grace. This reality instills humility. No matter how much one studies, memorizes, or teaches, the Quran always remains greater. The moment a person believes they have fully grasped it, they have already stepped away from its proper adab. The Quran humbles the scholar and invites the seeker. It resists ownership and rewards submission. True closeness to it produces awe, not arrogance. The unfolding of meaning continues across generations. As contexts change, challenges evolve, and hearts face new trials, the Quran responds, not with new verses, but with newly unveiled wisdom. A verse revealed 14 centuries ago can still speak directly to a modern soul navigating confusion, loss, or longing. This is not coincidence. It is divine design. Allah continues to open meanings until the final hour, ensuring that His words remain alive and relevant. To sit with the Quran, then, is not to master it, but to accompany it. To approach it knowing that today's understanding is not the final one. Tomorrow may reveal more. A lifetime may pass, and still the ocean remains. This awareness protects the believer from spiritual pride and invites a posture of lifelong reflection, returning again and again, not to conquer meaning, but to be reshaped by it. In this endless ocean, every sincere reader finds their portion, and the deeper the humility, the deeper the waters they are allowed to enter. Revelation did not begin as sound echoing in the air, nor as words shaped by the tongue. It began deeper within the heart. Before the prophet ever spoke the Quran aloud, it was placed within him as certainty, as weight, as truth too immense to be rushed into speech. The first encounter in the cave was not a lesson in pronunciation. It was an awakening of the inner world. Revelation entered the heart before it ever crossed the lips. Surat al-Alaq opens this sacred moment with a command that seems simple, yet carries profound depth. Read in the name of your Lord, who created. 96:1. The prophet responded that he could not read, not merely in literacy, but in readiness. This was not resistance, it was humility. Jibril did not force words upon a tongue unprepared. He pressed the message into the heart until the heart itself became capable of carrying it. Only then did the words emerge. Jibril's role was not only to deliver revelation, but to teach harmony, how divine light becomes human speech without losing its purity. The Quran did not descend as mechanical language. It descended as meaning, then clothed itself in words. The heart received first, absorbed the weight, and only afterward allowed the tongue to give it form. This sequence matters. It tells us that faith is not built on repetition, but on inner conviction. When words rise from the heart, they carry light. They reach other hearts because they originate from truth felt, not merely spoken. But when words rise only from the mouth, disconnected from the inner state, they remain hollow, correct in form, empty in impact. The Quran warns of this separation when it describes those who say what they do not carry within. Speech without certainty is noise, not guidance. Allah draws attention to the heart as the true place of reception when he says, "Indeed, it is not the eyes that are blind, but the hearts within the chest." Surah Al-Hajj 22:46. Vision, hearing, and speech all follow the condition of the heart. A heart filled with light gives life to words. A heart veiled by heedlessness renders even divine language ineffective upon the speaker themselves. This is why the Prophet ﷺ was described as a walking Quran. The revelation did not remain separate from him. It shaped his character, his responses, his silence. His words carried authority not because of eloquence alone, but because they emerged from a heart fully aligned with what it carried. Revelation had settled within him long before it flowed from him. Allah continues to seek vessels like this, hearts that speak before lips do, hearts that receive, believe, and embody before they announce. In such people, the Quran is not an external script, but an internal reality. Their recitation carries weight, their silence carries meaning, and their speech reflects a light that cannot be fabricated. Revelation still follows this order. Light enters the heart first, and only when the heart is alive does the tongue become worthy of carrying its echo. The grave is a place of stillness, where the familiar tools of life fall away. The tongue that once spoke effortlessly, the body that once moved with confidence, the mind that once rehearsed answers, all of it is subdued. In that moment, faith is no longer something performed. It is something revealed. The questions asked in the grave are not answered by memory or practice, but by what truly lives within the heart. When the angels ask, "Who is your Lord?" the response does not require effort. It rises naturally, or it does not rise at all. If Allah has been present in the heart throughout life, the answer flows as certainty, not as recitation. But if belief was borrowed, repeated from others, spoken without rooting itself inward, then hesitation takes its place. Silence, confusion, or doubt emerge not as punishment, but as exposure. The Quran alludes to this inner grounding when Allah says, "Allah keeps firm those who believe with the firm word in worldly life and in the hereafter." Surah Ibrahim 14:27. Firmness is not about volume or eloquence. It is about stability. A heart anchored in truth does not shake when tested, whether in life or beyond it. The grave simply reveals what was already there. This is why outward practice alone is not enough. Actions are essential, but they must be animated by sincerity. A person may speak of Allah often, yet rarely sit with him in solitude. They may repeat his names, yet feel no closeness. In life, this separation can be hidden. In the grave, it cannot. There, faith is no longer claimed, it is demonstrated. True belief is cultivated quietly. It grows in moments no one sees. When a person turns to Allah in fear, in gratitude, in weakness, it deepens when trust replaces panic, when remembrance interrupts sin, when reliance outweighs control. These moments shape the heart's language. And in the grave, the heart speaks in the only way it knows. Allah does not ask trick questions. He asks what the heart already answers daily. Who did you rely on? Who did you fear? Who did you love? The verbal response in the grave is merely the echo of a lifetime of inner orientation. A heart that recognized Allah as Lord in ease and hardship will recognize Him again without confusion. This reality shifts the focus of preparation. The hereafter is not prepared for by rehearsing answers, but by nurturing presence. By making Allah central in thought, in intention, in hope. When Allah truly lives in the heart, belief becomes instinctive. It no longer needs effort or proof. The grave is not the beginning of faith, it is the unveiling of it. And the most important preparation is not what the tongue will say then, but what the heart has been saying all along. Words are vessels, but they are only as luminous as the hearts that shape them. Islam does not call for mere repetition of sacred phrases or recitation of verses for the sake of formality. The ultimate aspiration is far deeper. It is to allow the divine light that resides within the heart to flow naturally into every utterance. When the heart is alive with this light, the tongue becomes an instrument of clarity, truth, and mercy rather than empty sound. The Qur'an reminds us of this sacred link between the heart and speech. And speak to people good words, Surah Al-Baqarah 2:283. The instruction is deceptively simple. Good words are not merely polite or pleasant. They are words infused with the presence of Allah within the speaker. Their quality depends not on eloquence, but on the inner state. A heart illuminated by divine guidance naturally produces words that comfort, heal, and inspire, while a heart neglected may give rise to speech that harms or misleads, even if outwardly precise. This alignment of words with inner light is cultivated through consistent spiritual discipline. Regular remembrance of Allah softens the heart, focusing attention away from ego and toward divine purpose. Sincerity cleanses intention, ensuring that speech seeks benefit rather than personal gain. Reflection deepens understanding, allowing the speaker to recognize when silence is more luminous than words and when words carry the potential to transform. In this way, speech becomes an extension of the heart, a living mirror of its spiritual state. The Prophet exemplified this harmony. Every word he spoke reflected the light of certainty and sincerity within him. Even in moments of ordinary conversation, his speech carried guidance, compassion, and tranquility. He did not simply recite or instruct, he conveyed presence. Those who listened were not only hearing, they were receiving. This is the subtle but profound difference between mere articulation and inspired communication. The former occupies sound, the latter carries illumination. When the heart leads, the tongue follows, and speech becomes transformative. It can soothe the distressed, correct without offending, and guide without coercion. It is gentle, measured, and meaningful because it is grounded in the divine light that nurtures it. Every word uttered in this state, no matter how ordinary, participates in a higher purpose. It reflects not personal brilliance, but the illumination granted by Allah to those who cultivate inner sincerity. This is the ultimate goal of the spiritual journey, not perfection in recitation or memorization, but the alignment of heart and tongue, of being and expression. When light animates speech, every conversation can carry healing, guidance, and peace. The believer becomes a channel through which divine mercy flows, transforming ordinary communication into acts of worship and service. Words cease to be empty. They become luminous extensions of a heart tuned to Allah. In this way, speech becomes a living testament. It is a reflection of the soul's alignment with divine presence, an ongoing reminder that the Qur'an's light is not confined to pages, nor to the tongue, but shines brightest when it radiates from heart to word, from intention to action. O Allah, shine the light of your Qur'an deep within our hearts, so that its guidance may awaken every corner of our souls. Let our tongues speak only what springs from sincerity and faith, and may every word carry the warmth of your presence. Bind our hearts and our speech in truth, and grant us understanding that draws us closer to you with every breath. Bestow peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad, and make us humble bearers of your light, reflecting it in our lives, our deeds, and our quiet moments of remembrance. May none. Thank you for watching. If you found this video inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us reach more hearts and continue creating meaningful content. Stay connected and be part of our journey.